welcome to our councillors zooming in today. Councillor Duncan, Councillor Lambert and Councillor Coral Raukawa. Welcome to today's meeting. If we could be upstanding and have the council prayer read. Thank you, Councillor Gordon.
Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all of our people. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor Gordon. We do not have any public forum. I have not been made aware of any public forum for today's meeting. Conflict of interest. Members, you're all aware of our guidance around conflicts of interest. If there is any matters relating to today's agenda that you feel that you may have conflict, please raise at the time, or if it comes apparent throughout the meeting, also please raise that, bring it up with the chair. Confirmation of order of business. I have no changes in the confirmation of order of business being notified, and we have received no apologies at this stage. So thank you for that. We will move through to confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting, and they are on page 6. So moving through page 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, nothing online there, 11, 12. Any matters arising from the members with regards to the previous assets and infrastructure meeting? Moved from His Worship the Mayor, seconded Councillor Belsham. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I just have a couple of things. The new consents for Taihape and Hunterville Water. Could you remind me when they would? What's the timeline around that? And another comment I'd really be interested in having a reply to is, what is the level of the Hautapu River now? I understand that Councillor Gordon and His Worship the Mayor mentioned that it's been so low, and with the rain up here, I'd be really keen to know if that's changed.
Is that matters that, Jess, we have coming up later on in today's, or do they relate directly back to our previous committee meeting minutes?
I can answer the first questions about the consents for Taihape and Hunterville. They've not been brought to this committee, they've been brought to full council, but I'm happy to answer through the Chief Executive. So the timeframes for the Taihape wastewater treatment plant, we're seeking a 10-year consent at the end of 2022. And for Hunterville wastewater treatment plant, we are still developing the program. That means we're looking at what technical reports are required first, and then I'll be able to give a program for lodging for a new consent by about March next year.
Thank you, Jess. Councillor Duncan, has that clarified your question?
Thank you. And as far as the river level goes, thank you, Jess, sorry. Do we have an opinion or any information about the river?
Your Worship, you have comment?
I'm just not sure where we're at. This is just confirmation of the minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I was questioning that at the beginning stage, Your Worship, but that first question was asked from the minutes.
I think we get in danger if we raise additional items to those minutes. This is purely confirmation of the minutes.
Perhaps that could be brought up in the infrastructure report at item 10, Councillor Duncan.
I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I thought the question was asked. Matters arising.
Oh, sorry. No.
Was there a comment that we could clarify that matter from now with regards to the Hardtap river levels?
If I may, Mr. Chair, go to the Horizons Regional Council website and there is the Abattoir Road measurement.
Right, thank you. Okay, so just welcoming Councillor Ash, who's just joined us online. Welcome, Kath. We've got you there. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're just moving on to item number 7 here, which is follow-up actions from previous assets and infrastructure meeting. There's a number of matters there which are in front of you. We will start by going through that with the follow-up actions list. And I note that there was a couple of matters that had been reopened. Excuse me while I just find it. That's on page.
We've been handed
It's on
out
page,
an
yeah.
additional
It's on
bit of
page
paper.
14.
Yeah,
Also in the
that's the same as that.
Yeah, sorry, the additional piece of paper is just because the original printed version came out back from.
Okay, thank you.
but it's the same information. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it is correct online as received through your order papers. So the first item was the Bulls Water Tower. Jess, that was in your game, but there's a staff comment there in progress. Anything further to add, Jess? Just an item in progress there. Any questions relating to that?
It's going to the December council meetings.
It's in this area,
That's-
the
yeah,
paper.
right.
Okay. Smart devices for water. Arno, update that this will be by the December 21st committee meeting. Comment?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two things. In the action, it notes for water pumps, that should be for water meters, if we could just fix that up. And secondly, that will now happen in the middle of summer in conjunction with the other leakage and loss initiatives that we're driving. And once it's all wrapped up, I'll bring a report back to tell you what we're doing.
Is the committee we're happy with where we're at with that item? Thank you. Third item there regarding eroding section infrastructure group reports. Update farmers will be communicated with regarding extra culverts. An item still in progress that came from Councillor Gordon. Happy with the situation with that? It's still in progress. Is there any further to report on that?
This is where I need a bit of guidance from the committee. So we've taken on board that specifically in that area that we would have to have close contact with the farmers. Do we leave it on as an action or do we close it off?
I would refer that back to Councillor Gordon as he raised the original concern.
If the contact is part of the process, then I see it as closed. If it's in the system, then it's in the system.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The committee's happy with that. We'll put that as an undertaking there. Next item.
Similar with that. So
Yep.
we have gone back to the roading team
Yes.
and we have made them aware that we should use Wakakatahi
Yes.
in future reports. So that one we could close off as well.
Your Worship, you have a question?
Yeah, I agree it should be closed off. I think I probably raised it because of the board meetings, they're sensitive, but I do note that some of their vehicles still have NZTA written on the doors, so they probably need to get their own systems into place. So, but I'm happy that it's closed off. Thank you.
You've got a question behind you.
Sorry, question from Councillor Duncan.
Yes, thank you. Can I suggest that it says rather than NZTA, can I suggest it should be as well as? I certainly know a lot of people who are still transitioning in their understanding of what Wakakotari is. So I would suggest it should be called Wakakotari NZTA.
I would suggest that the Wakakotari is the name of the organisation now, and it's its official name, and I think that's what it should be referred to as. People may be transitioning from it, but we should refrain, list it in our council documents as the name of which the organisation is now being listed as. Would be my thinking. I don't know what the feeling from the committee is, but that is the name of the organisation, and I believe that's what we should refer to it as in all correspondence through council.
Can I say something further?
Yes, Councillor Duncan.
Sorry, just not to be argumentative, but I think the Mayor's point that it's still flagged on vehicles also would back up the fact that there's still a transitioning.
I would suggest that's probably a matter for Waka Kotahi to be dealing with themselves as an organisation, and probably not something for us to have too much input into. Your Worship, you had a question?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to call them by their correct name. That's what their correct name is. We just make the transition more difficult if our documents suggest something other than that.
I would agree. So I think that's now the next item I see has been quite well documented in today's agenda. So thank you for that. I think that's very clear, and we'll get to that as we go through the agenda. Councillor Belsham, Councillor Ash, item reopened. Is there any update on that with regards to the Calico Line intersection that you can provide us, Arno, or is it still a work in progress and now it's an open action that we're still following through? Would that be my understanding of it?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. So I think for the next three of them, I would like to leave those reopened until they are completely closed off.
Yeah.
Just to be sure that they don't fall through the cracks.
Okay.
And I'm not sure when that work will be programmed or the repairs will be programmed, but it might take a bit of time, but let's just leave them open to keep them going.
Councillor Belsham, you're happy with that, the status of that being remaining on this list for future reference? Councillor Carter, you would be of the same mind?
Yes, thank you.
You go to
Also,
those two.
querying the fact that it's got the ceiling, does it also include the curbing?
All of them, yeah, all of it.
It's the full job, is that correct? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Belsham.
Just one point on that. There were two issues on that Calico Line intersection, and one was the ramping, and the other one was certainly the marking, which Councillor Ash raised. And I would have thought that the marking issue could have been a simpler, easier fix, and maybe perhaps some pressure is put back on the contractor to deal with that issue, because it is really confusing at night on a wet road. It looks like a multitude of lines, and we've seen it repaired before where they've actually burnt the paint out of the asphalt. I think that, to me, I think that's probably a priority to be dealt with. And I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I agree. It can be very, very confusing sometimes. You can see the old lines bleeding through and you're not really quite sure where you are.
Good. Okay.
So I believe it is actually a bit of a safety issue, that one.
It is.
Probably needs to be addressed with a little bit more urgency. Councillor Ash, you had a concern with regards to that. You're happy with the status of that? Thank you. Next item was the Mangawaka Bridge. We've seen some recent correspondence that was reopened, and Jess, any further comment on that from the committee?
The progression videos, the time lapses went out on our website and our Facebook yesterday.
Yeah.
Superb.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Really impressive.
Did receive that. The next item, Councillor Belsham, was from yourself and I. I believe that matter can come up later on the agenda when we get to the tonnage to landfill. We'll have a discussion around that there. Would you be happy with that? Your Worship, question?
Yeah, I would seek a change in the wording, and this is... So
which item are we talking about there?
So we're talking about Councillor Belsham Wilson
Yes.
advised staff.
Yes.
The wording should be to staff undertook to investigate the increase in landfill tonnage from our transfer stations, etc. On second thoughts, I'm happy. When I read this the other night, I thought that the hour referred to Bonnie Glen rather than the transfer stations. And we're still getting people thinking that Bonnie Glen's out, so no.
Understand that, but it's definitely,
higher,
definitely to do with
shouldn't
our
have
transfer stations, but I think we'll just park that one as it's an item for discussion later in today's agenda. Town Square.
Oh, no, yes, sorry, we'll go back to this. I do require it changed. So it says Councillor Belsham and Councillor Wilson advise staff that they have an individual raise an issue with waste coming through our transfer stations from outside the district and then going to our landfill. It is not our landfill.
No,
and people still in this district believe it is a council landfill. So I would like to see the change.
simply to the landfill?
Yeah.
Bonnie Glen landfill.
The Bonnie Glen landfill, but
Bonnie Glen landfill, okay.
yeah, it sounds like a really small point,
No.
but for years we've dealt with this difficulty.
Yes, understand, Your Worship, and I can see where that may raise some confusion. So if we could refer to that as the Bonnie Glen landfill. Ash, if you've got that, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, for raising that.
There's a question on that.
Question, Councillor Ash.
Thank you. So just for clarification, if waste is coming from outside of the district to our transfer stations, does that get then calculated and included in our cap that we have our rate for that goes to Bonnie Glen?
Yeah, if I could just answer that one here. We do have this item coming up and later in our agenda where I think we can probably discuss this in a little bit more
Thank
detail.
you.
In our tonnage comparisons, and I think that's the appropriate place to raise that question. And we'll
I was just asking in regards to your open action here in regards to outside waste coming from outside of the district and how that might affect us. But if you're happy to talk about it at the later agenda item.
Later in the agenda item, I think we'll bring that up and we'll just note that it's an item that's in progress at the moment with
Sure.
staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of follow-up actions. There's no other comment from...
Yeah, there's one more.
Sorry, did I miss one? Oh, the Bulls, yeah, sorry, Bulls Town Square bus lane works. So how are we progressing with that? I'm noting that it's in communication to be distributed at the end of August and it's in progress. So where are we at?
Yeah, so I followed up on that one. We did not send a communication out to them before the work started, but what we are proposing now is to send them a communication to update them on progress as to where we are. And included in that communication will be a scheme layout of what we're proposing to do. So at least it'll give them an opportunity to have a look at what's planned and what progress is.
When do we expect that to happen? Would that be prior to the next Bulls Community Committee meeting, which is now probably they met yesterday, did they? They met last night, so there's not going to be another Bulls Community Committee scheduled until February. So would you expect that communication to go to that committee prior to that or at that meeting?
I would like to see it go prior to that, and I'm sure we would have email contact details for them.
Yeah, that's pretty much what my thinking would be. If we could communicate some of that information via to the community committee chair, that then may be able to in turn circulate it to the members. I think that would be appropriate rather than waiting till February. If we can circulate that information, I think it's important. So, thank you. So we can leave that as an undertaking.
Yeah,
That you'll follow that through. Thank you for that, Councillor Belsham.
Just in regards with that, so this information is to disseminate in amongst the community so that they're aware of why the deferrals were happening. I just wonder also there's another organisation that provides the bulletin, which is circulated widely throughout the community. I just wondered whether a copy of that information should be provided to them to put into their bulletin. So that's another avenue for communication spreading.
What was that? Sorry, Councillor Countess.
Since its last issue this year.
Is it? Okay.
It is no longer continuing.
That's finished for the year.
So it would be of no point to put it in the January bulletin.
Sorry, we'll just come back to that. So, Arno.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I just ask when is the first issue for the new year?
Uncertain.
Okay. Because I take on board what Councillor Belsham is saying, it will still achieve the goal of getting the information out to the community, even if it is early in the evening.
I would agree with Councillor Belsham that even if we circulate that information in an equal forum as what we're doing with the Bulls Community Committee, then I think it's appropriate to send it to both organisations and they can circulate it at their earliest convenience and earliest opportunity. So I think it is important that we get that information out as to where the project's up and perhaps any other information that you've got that can be shared with the community on progress and timelines and things like that. I think the important thing is to get that information out and get it to the appropriate people.
I think thank you, Mr. Chair. The spirit of what you're asking for is greater communication on the project and in particular to the community committee, and I think that's valid. We discussed that at the last council meeting, that's a project for Carol and I to improve that, particularly on our capital projects. This particular one is just around why it was delayed over the winter and how we get that information. You know, at the moment, per your report, Mr. Chair, it's buried in the official papers and not explicitly stated.
Yes.
On the actual wider project, I think we could have done more on that, and like you've said in the bulletin, the community committee. What we have done though, if the project is online, or the plans are online, it's been on Facebook, it's been in the Rangitikei Connect, etc. And whilst that's probably good, I think the next step is better, which is why we've asked for Carol to get more resource to do that. And so the sentiment is I totally agree with.
Yep. Okay. Councillor Carter.
Yeah, with regarding the communication with the committee last night, they had about a half dozen things that haven't been reported back to them to what's going on, what's happening. So there's a number of things that was moved last night to be looked at. So
I do take the Chief Executive's point though. We have had this conversation during full council. I think at the last council meeting, this matter was raised about some improvement in some of that communication across the board. And I do know that Carol and her team have been working through it. And this is just another example of where we can get some improvements. And I think there is a strong desire, not only from council, but also from the staff to actually get that right. And it is a bit of a work in progress that we're doing the best we can to get that information out as clearly so that there's no surprises. So that's what we're working to do. So I take your comments on board, Chief Executive, and would agree. So moving on from that, is everybody happy with that deals with those follow-up actions from the previous meeting? Don't believe they need to be received or anything, do they? No, that's just an issue. Okay, where are we? Sorry. Okay, follow-up actions and instructions be received. I'll move from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Carter, thank you. Okay, so with regards to that, just moving into my chair's report, not really a lot to report in there. As you will see, it does raise the question, which I've said, often some of this information is a little bit buried in some of our reports. And you know, we have significant milestones that we achieve through a large number of projects that we are doing right across the district. And as I've said in there, they are of significant benefit to the people of Rangitikei, and a number of them are going to be of significant benefit to our environmental outcomes. And I think we should just champion some of these things because they are significant projects, and we should celebrate, you know, the start, the halfway mark, or significant things that do happen within them, and we should share those. And I think that's where that sentiment came from. I note in there, particularly with Mr. Bernardi speaking at a recent engagement around the water strategy project for Marton. It was very well presented. Thank you, Arno. It was very clear. It was very concise. There was a number of questions came from the floor, which you were able to clearly answer and articulate back to the people that were asking those questions. And I'm very confident that that group of people went away with a far greater understanding of what the issues are and what's actually being done to address them. And I think if we can get that out, I'm mindful of your time and thank you for your time to do that, but I think it's really important that this information gets out, and it does tie back into the comment which we heard from the Chief Executive on the last item, with regards to an improvement in our communication plans. And I think this could be just one more tool in the toolbox to get it out. So thank you for your time the other night. That's much appreciated. But just these projects are significant, and let's celebrate them. So nothing. Are there any other questions from my report, or does that sort of clarify where I was sitting here thinking when I wrote it?
I'd just like to comment and back up your comments that that was well received and an excellent communication tool to spread the word within the community. I don't like to liken it to the spread of COVID, but you tell a group of people, and then information spreads from there wildly, and to get the accurate information out there spreading is hugely important. So yeah, I'll back up.
I agree. Thank you for that, Councillor Belsham. So with that, I'll move my report from the chair. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Dalgetty, thank you. Next item we have is the plan for the Bulls Water and Reservoir Artistic Improvements. Jess, you'll take us through this, and it is noting it is an action from the follow-up list as well. So.
Yes, thank you. So we came and presented in October, outlining a suggestion to improve the Bulls Water Tower aesthetically. Since then, the changes are we would like to collaborate with the Bulls Community Committee and include the water reservoir there, so that we're doing a more holistic upgrade aesthetically in that area. So we're proposing we've got a plan in here for how we're going to do it, which aligns with our strategic aims as well. And this will be a collaborative working party with 3 members of staff and a member of the Bulls Community Committee. So today I'm hoping to get your endorsement for the plan that I've put forward. This doesn't require any financial commitment from council, but just for staff time to make this happen.
I had one question, if I may, and thank you, Jess. I think this does capture our earlier discussions when you first brought this to us. So I think it does clarify it very well. I was just wondering where the connection comes with the Foxton Tower. I couldn't quite put that together. They're miles away from each other. They don't even resemble each other, in my opinion. And I'm trying to figure out where that link is. Why does that come about?
It was raised by a member of staff that there could be some sort of connectivity for people driving north from Wellington, a bit of making like a sightseeing tour one day of the wider region's structure art. So we sort of envisaged 5 years down the track, let's say there's a little tour mapped out for people who go to Foxton, look at their water tower, come and look at ours. We would love to, in the future, have silos in the Rangitikei district with artwork on them. And it could be a bit of a, fun family holiday activity. So the action at the moment in the plan is just to ask Horowhenua if there's any interest. There's not a commitment there. But yeah, with the idea of what the future might look like in terms of place finding, it can be a bit of fun.
The reason I asked, I was thinking, well, were they built by the same people or something, or was there some sort of greater reason why these two should be, which to me are quite distant things, but I can see where your thinking is coming from, but I didn't quite see the link to the Foxton Water Tower. Is there any questions from the committee with regards to the report that's been presented to us here today? Councillor Duncan, online.
Thank you. Thank you, Jess, for this report. I think it's a great idea, linking if it's possible. The other thing I'd like to say, though, is always, and this is a staff of course, but I always think it's really great if you can use local artists. Mm-hmm. And obviously Bulls has its own theme, so yeah, good luck and thank you.
Thank you. One of the suggested criteria for evaluating community submissions is representing the history of Bulls in the Rangitikei, and we are planning, soliciting submissions in a way that really targets local.
Are there further questions of the report before we move to the recommendations? from me. Great initiative, Jess. I think that it has scope to be another, iconic thing for Bulls, and certainly the entranceway and the gateway to the Rangitiki. So I think it's got some measure. Recommendation 1, that the report plan Bulls Water Tower Reservoir artistic improvements be received. I'll move from the chair, seconded from Councillor Carter. Thank you. Recommendation 2, Councillor Carter moving, seconding Councillor Gordon. And recommendation 3, Councillor Alkawa moving and seconded from Councillor Dalgety. Thank you. Exciting times. We look forward to see what comes out when we start going to get requests.
Me too.
Oh, for the recommendations. Oh, they were only recommendations, weren't they? Okay, right. Okay, good point. I didn't think as there wasn't really an action being coming out of it, there were the recommendations, but happy to see that. Okay, just a point of clarification from the chair there. The 3 recommendations that are being put and all have received movers and seconders. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Councillor Carter.
Regarding the reservoir, I must congratulate the council on the fencing that they've chosen for the front of it. The thin-lined steel frame on the front of the building itself, front of the section. It doesn't impair the tank if they're going to paint it or whatever, but fantastic looking fence. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that feedback. So it's always appreciated, I'm sure, by council and staff. Item number 10 on today's agenda is the infrastructure group report. Jess, I think that puts you back in the chair, probably in conjunction with Arno. So would you like to take us through?
Sure, and do let me know if you have any questions at any time. Roading, you'll see that it looks like maintenance is behind program. That's just because the forecast is shown as a straight line, whereas most of our work is done between now and April in the best weather. That applies also for the renewals. We've got a couple of tables there of the planned works. If there's any comments, happy to.
I just have, so we'll go to Councillor Gordon. So you had a question, Councillor?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I know this has come up in previous meetings, the program line. We have thought in the past that we would adjust that to what the actuals were for the previous year to make it a bit more realistic. Is there any intention to go there?
This is through you, Mr. Chair, if I can. I completely agree that would be outstanding if we could have a proposed cash flow for the year. Unfortunately for us at the moment, that's a nice to have, and we will consider that once we have a bit more time. At the moment, I'd rather have people out there building things than. But we take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carter.
Is the pump station and the rising main, is that included on this as well?
In the next section, and not under the roading, just the next one.
So coming into road improvements.
There's a good question.
Apologies.
Yeah, in terms of the roading, we've got a couple of things I was wondering about roading. One was the Marton bridge. So we did have an earlier report that indicated that there would be a little bit of strengthening work that's required with the upgrade of the HPMV vehicles, that it was okay to go at the moment, but that there was non-invasive work that needed to be done. And I just see that that's not included in the bridge sections. Is it now not warranted or deferred?
I couldn't comment on that and would have to refer back to where that action was listed. Was that listed at an assets and infrastructure meeting, or was it listed at a
previously a report that came to assets some time ago, I think. The question was raised when the boundary bridge was strengthened, and the question was then are there any other bridges on it? And the Mofonga Bridge was brought up as an issue.
Yes, that's ringing a bell, yep.
And at that stage, and it may have been council, but I think it was assets.
Mr. Finardi, do you have a comment with regards to that?
Yeah, I do actually. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can remember all the other bridges were assessed after that one was upgraded, and they were found to all be suitable for the higher loads. There was just a speed limit on one of them, and I'll find that update. There was an email update back to the committee on that road, and that it is now suitable for heavy loads. The whole route with that one speed reduction.
It certainly was suitable, but they then said, the staff at the time said, there had to be some work done on underneath strengthening, but non-invasive. In other words, they're saying the road wasn't going to be significantly affected in terms of closure. Could I just ask staff if they could just go back and look?
Councillor Belsham, do you have comment with regards to this item?
Sorry, not this one. I've got a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
So yes, your worship.
And the second point was...
Yeah, we'll just get that as an action point noted.
So an action by His Worship.
So it was to follow up Mofonga, status of Mofonga Bridge.
Status of the work needed on the Mofonga Bridge.
Is there a further matter, your worship?
The other one was, as part of the roading report, it refers to speed limit changes on the Taihape Napier Road in the WSP Opus report. Does that report indicate a change to the speed limit recommended by WSP Opus to the entire road or sections of it, and if so, what? We are talking a very long length of road.
Yeah, that would be, it's an undertaking by Waka Kotahi though, via that recommendation, or was it via council's recommendation back to Waka Kotahi to do that?
Well, the way the report read to me was that WSP Opus had done some work on terms of corridor management, which would then flow back to Waka Kotahi. So there's two parallel things here, I think.
We did receive, when WSP Opus sat here and gave us a report regarding the status road, there was some questions on some speed limits at certain points throughout the road. But Mr. Bernardi, do you have further comment on that?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, His Worship's correct. That was the first portion of the work to be done to consider, or for Waka Kotahi to consider, that link as another state highway.
Yes.
As part of that work, they had a whole range of safety improvements that we could make, and some of it was speed reduction at certain areas on the route, not all of it, but certain bits where there's either a sharp end or...
Yes.
And what we're saying is we could easily consider those speed reductions because it is a simple thing to do, and it will bring about big safety changes.
Councillor Gordon, you had sort of, does that get some clarity for you there, your worship, around that, the status of that in the report?
So did that submission flow back into the submission process around speed limit changes, road to zero, requests that we've had from Waka Kotahi to engage?
I don't believe we've submitted to that of recent.
There's two bundles of work there. The first one was asking us to go to Palmerston, where I think, Arno, did you go? I certainly did. I thought you were there. So we then had an oral discussion with Waka Kotahi, but they are now in the process of recommending speed limit changes for all of our roads. And for instance, they're now at the stage of recommending a speed limit change, I think, for 41 k's of road from between Whanganui and Bulls. So it is absolutely topical at the moment, and we probably need to totally understand what we have submitted when we go into those discussions.
Yeah, okay. I don't know that there's an action we can take out of this from here to go forward to that, unless we're doing a formal submission.
I think to answer His Worship, it might be an action to say to check what we have submitted
Yeah,
to this, because it could have been done by our partners and, yeah.
rating teams for
one or
the
two.
shared services.
Yes.
Yeah.
So perhaps that could be.
Yeah, I mean, what we are going to see are massive changes in speed limits.
Yeah,
So-
that's certainly been signalled.
And you know, when it was highlighted the other day to me in a meeting that they're looking at a speed limit change for 41 k's between Wanganui and Bulls, they're very significant changes.
Yes, Your Worship, and I agree, but that was also brought to us with the Road to Zero plan was brought to the council meeting for discussion some year or 18 months ago, that was on the signalled as being on the horizon at that stage. But I think if there's an action for us to clarify as to whether or not there was any submission done with regards to speed limits on portions of the the Taihape to Napier roads, then that would clarify. Would that please suffice?
Yeah, I think we actually cover it for me.
We'll take that as an action to that go through to on the Taihape to speed limits. Yes, yeah, okay, yeah, I think that covers it. You happy with that, Your Worship? Okay, Councillor Belsham, you had a question. Was it on this matter or another one on the?
Within the report, page 21, on rehabilitation and sent-off road, there's a comment there saying accelerated deterioration from winter logging traffic. So my question is, are we building a picture with these sort of repairs being required on deterioration of our, not just our sealed roads, but also our gravel section roads within the district, to get a better handle on the impact of increased logging that's coming out of rural forestry areas? I know there's discussion going on with there was about to be discussion with the industry, and do we have a handle on actually impacts that we're seeing come up in our programs now, so that can be included in that discussion? Yeah, that's my question.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, yes. So the strategy for us at the moment is, instead of spending money up front to strengthen roads, I think there's only 2 routes that we consider that. The rest is to go after and repair or do the repairs. We think it's a more cost-effective way. So yes, I think the roading team would keep an eye on where the logging is happening and keeping an eye on the damage that's been done. But we must also remember, in the 3-year windows between the activity management plans, we are continuously collecting data on road condition and smoothness and all the rest. And if any of those go up, we would know about that. But if you'd like, I can get more details from John Jones on exactly what they have in place. I think that'll give you more confidence that they are keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, I think it would be useful for that group, when those discussions are taking place, to actually have some evidence of what's been shown in the very near future of impact. That would certainly help with those discussions.
Councillor Gordon, do you have information relating to this or comment?
Well, it's actually a question on the same subject matter, and it's really referring to the same process. My question is, was this section of road previously identified as a potential risk as part of that process that we had, where they said we're going to take most of their logs this way and not that way? Or, and I guess it's a yes or a no. It is, yeah.
No, to be honest, I don't know. It's a good question, because you make a good point. There would be areas in the region that we would keep a specific eye on, because we're aware that there's quite large harvesting to be happening there. But if there are suddenly a change in route or another block that becomes available that we were unaware of, how do we keep track of those?
I guess it looks like this was programmed for maintenance anyway, and we've just had to drag it forward by 12 months. But yeah. Okay, thank you.
Actually, on the same item, questions I had, it says that to balance the budget for Tangata Road has become a reserve project. But if you look at the 2 projects, one of Ruatangata Road, which has now been shifted out, that's 175 metres. And the proposed one on the Santoff Road in length is 1,500 metres. So there's a significant difference in the meterage. So one doesn't balance out the other with regards to what the costs are. So I'm just a little bit confused as to, has this number been brought forward? Is it are we looking at something that's unbudgeted? Or from an expense point of view, just looks a little odd to me the way it works, but
Yep.
I'm seeking some clarification on it.
So what the rating teams do every year, they have these reserve projects that sit there in case we cannot do one of the others, and we have capital that frees up. Then we say there's a list of 2 or 3 of them that we can quickly exchange and put it into place, or we finish some of them earlier or at a lesser cost, and there's some capital available. That's where these reserve projects then suddenly come on the list. So if we don't do it this year as a reserve project, it'll be on the list for next year. But you'll always see reserve projects sitting at the back of the list.
Yeah, it's not so much the reserve project, it's more, does the budgets, does the money add up the same?
Always the same, yeah. The money's always the same. It's just quite often we cannot get a consent or there's a problem with weather conditions, whatever it might be, that frees up one of the other projects that can't happen this year. That capital we would have spent there, we'll spend on the reserve project.
Okay, Your Worship, just before I go to you, Chief Executive, Your Worship, you've got a comment?
I don't have a problem with this, other than it doesn't actually match up with our LTP. So in our LTP documents, if you go to roading, for instance, it lists rehabilitation of roads, etc. So Ruatangata Road is listed as a document within our LTP that it gets done. I don't think the other roads are. The issue that potentially creates to a community is that somebody comes back, or when our LTP gets audited, you said that you will do this and the community then understands, and actually we've digressed in year 1 away from our LTP. And I think, I totally think that the roading team should have some flexibility in it. Absolutely get that. But whether in the future when we sort out an LTP, we put a block of programs and say, we will work within these parameters. That's the only issue I have, and it's one of notification. Down the track, potentially you can get audited against that.
I can see where that would be useful to allow some flexibility within it.
Yeah.
Chief Executive, you had yeah. So I can certainly see that in future that might give that flexibility that we need. And I can understand the reason why this was in here. It was just the way it read to me that one was being swapped for the other, but there was a significant capital difference. So I accept your explanation. Moving on through, sorry Jess, we've digressed a little bit on that one.
No problem. Any queries on the structural upgrades? No? Mangawika Bridge, I mentioned before, the time lapse has gone out on Facebook and our website, looking really good. Any comments on health and safety? That brings us to the roading budgets. I think you'll agree the budget spent year to date of 17% aligns with the curves you can see in the graphs of the work that's been done. We see the most of our spend in the next 5 months.
Jess, can you just clarify for me, environmental maintenance, what does that actually refer to? Sorry, what is it?
Yeah, that'll be mostly stormwater management on roads out in the district. Quite often we would repair an open stream as part of an upgrade, obviously with the necessary consents and approvals from rises, but it's all of those kind of stormwater management systems along roads to make it work.
Thank you.
Are we happy to leave roading and move on to utilities?
Yep.
Great.
No further questions online from anybody there? No. Thank you. Happy to carry on, Jess.
Cool, thank you. So we've got the table there of our projects and spend on them to date. Are there any questions on the projects over those 3 pages?
Just on that utilities one for me, I thought the reporting structure that you've implemented there is good and clear and concise.
Awesome.
Easy to see and to pick up on. I think that was very good. Thank you. Councillor Carter, you had a question?
Yeah, I referred to earlier regarding the rising main for the Halls Reservoir and the pump station itself, is that budgeted for this one as well? Or was that previous?
So it is in this one. It's not detailed out here at the moment. This covers the projects that are being delivered by NDC under the shared services contract, and we've taken those projects back in-house. So they're being delivered by the PMO. I'm happy to provide an update if that's all right.
If that will help answer the question to
Yep.
Councillor Carter, then yes.
In terms of where they're at, the pump station is being designed and the rising main is being designed. They are the rising main as part of the contract with Fulton Hogan. That also includes the Marton to Bulls pipeline, and it is being mostly funded by DIA as part of the Three Waters Reform funding. So the construction for it is planned for around March next year. That's for the rising main. The pump station is to be funded by us, and we have asked for our consultants to re-look at the design based on the revised population forecasts that have come out of Katrina Gray. So at the moment, the funding is in this financial year for that. If we need to do the pump station in the next financial year, we'll communicate that well ahead of time.
Councillor Gordon, you had a question?
Yeah, page 30, under sewerage new works, we've got the Marton to Bulls centralisation project. As well as two bits of it there. Are those numbers just what are going to be completed during this financial year? Because that project is considerably larger than those two numbers, and I just wonder if somewhere we shouldn't be flagging the total budget envelope somewhere, just so that everybody gets their heads around how big the numbers are.
For the purposes of this reporting to A&I, you see at the top of the table it says 21 to 22 FY, so we only report this financial year, but then the PMO report that comes to council reports fully on the total budget.
Yeah, I'm happy.
You'll get that good stuff next week.
Comment from Dave too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good question. Last month's Finance and Performance Committee agenda papers actually included a reconciliation of full project budgets to annual financial budgets. So that reconciliation is there.
All right, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor? Thank you. Okay, are there further questions on that report? Jess, your...
I can move to the consent compliance. So it's the further report that comes to the full council on the regional treatment plant consenting program. That is the solution to a lot of the problems that come up in this section of this report. So you see for water abstraction, Taihape is non-compliant. It is usually non-compliant because we abstract over our consented amount. We have received a report, it was due on the 30th of November, but it came in late, hence why it's not included in this report. It came through on the 3rd. So I wasn't able to include an update in that. What we did get from WSP, one of the benefits that's coming out of this regional treatment plant consenting program is a well-engineered, well-designed solution, including the installation of 2 valves along the pipeline to control the flow properly. So that's had process engineering done. It is a really good solution that we are still reviewing. That's also been provided back to Horizons, and I now have a program in place with Horizons for updating them around what we're doing to address the non-compliances at Taihape's water intake. They have concerns because we're going into the low flow season. They want to see us taking action. At the moment, they have not signalled they are placing infringements on us. So I'm hoping that this continual communication and them seeing us making progress will help reduce that risk.
Councillor Gordon, a particular interest, this one to you.
Yeah, so you're pretty happy with what WSP has provided us is a genuine, long-lasting solution.
A complete solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually a very, very smart solution.
Great. Look forward to the report.
I'm happy to share the report. It's a really good report. We've gone back to them and asked them for a cost estimate. That was one thing that wasn't included. And the challenge for us is that is unbudgeted capital expenditure. So we will, when we get the cost estimate, come back to you. Substitution. And we may have some opportunities for substitution as well. There is a project for Taihape Raw Water Falling Main. I wouldn't hedge my bet so that's going to be enough, but that could be a solid substitution and help pay for the cost of the valves.
Good. It sounds like it's a good result to deal with that issue.
Well, yeah, I do just need to say what a good job that BSP is doing on this program. They're really uncovering the issues and then helping solve them.
Further question, Councillor Gore?
Well, if I'm allowed to comment, it's great to see that some really smart engineering now has been pulled into these problem areas. You know, and if I may sort of generalise, I think it's something that all small TAs struggle with, is having that capacity.
Totally.
But great. Looking forward to it.
Good.
Moving further through your report, Jess.
Okay, so we come to the part around the wastewater treatment plant consent compliance. Marton wastewater treatment plant, again, these exceedances are being addressed through the reconsenting program. Happy to take any comments on that. Same with Taihape wastewater treatment plant. On the subject of Taihape wastewater treatment plant, we've had a number of hui with iwi and are working towards solutions which WSP is designing for us. There was a comment from Councillor Gordon last time about ensuring the right iwi are being consulted with, and the consultation with a further 2 iwi started. Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Gordon, further comment?
If I may, I suspect in environment for Taihape it should read DRP copper and zinc.
It should, thank you.
Just typo. And my question is, when is the next meeting which Councillors Duncan and myself are meant to be attending program for? Have you got a date set just so that you can...
Later end of January.
Cool, thank you.
The invite hasn't gone out yet, sorry, but I will get that out and also circulate the technical report as well.
Just, Your Worship, yes?
Yeah, just with regard to the Cooper or copper, whatever you want to call it. I was just a little surprised to see copper and zinc coming up. Is there a reason for that? Where's that?
I couldn't comment, sorry.
Do we know whether that is coming into the system?
Generally, if through you, Mr. Chairman, if you consider most of our plumbing or this particular copper pipe, a lot comes from there. But we can look into it. I'm not sure what's driving it.
But it's not something that we're putting onto the dams, onto the treatment.
No, this is
We don't
October.
normally put copper and zinc.
In October, no, definitely not.
Is the question as to whether or not there's been some sort of a spike in it? Is that what you're questioning?
It's just an unusual combination to come up in wastewater treatment analysis, and just wondered whether there was any sort of... I just haven't seen it over years. I've seen all sorts of other chemicals that come through, and but copper and zinc.
Councillor Gordon, do you have a comment with regards to this?
My question, sort of comment, I'll ask a question. Do we receive any industrial discharges to this site? It may possibly, if you were to delve down into who's consented to dispose of what, you might find some answers, and I'll just leave it there.
That's where I was heading, really.
Yep.
I just can't think of it. A source.
Park that, leave that there. One comment for me, reconsenting which is scheduled for completion prior to the 1st of July 2023. That seems to me to be a long way off for continued non-compliances.
That's a general comment about the whole WSP reconsenting program.
Okay, not specific to Taihape.
No, it's not. I cover that off in the full council report, the PMO report. But the current timeframe for Taihape is to have a new consent in place by the end of next year,
Thank you.
calendar year.
Online, councillor Ash.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, can I just get a clarification? Was that going to be an action taken to investigate and confirm where the copper and zinc and any other elements come up, where they're coming from, and if there's mitigation that we can undertake?
Good point, councillor Ash. Is there something that we can do to investigate that? Is that an action that can be taken, or is it not practical to do so?
Yeah, I think if I through you, Mr. Chairman, the tricky answer with this is, like I said, most of our plumbing and all of our houses is copper and zinc, and that's where it's from. So generally, it's very difficult to find those two. They're non-point source pollutants. I take on board, though, what the committee is saying, that there's one potential source that might be higher than any of the others. And I would definitely ask the operational staff to keep an eye on that one and take the odd sample and let's see what those numbers are.
Okay.
I think that's something that's quite achievable.
Okay, so that we could take that as an action then, which
Yes.
might clarify the question that councillor Ash is asking.
Could you articulate that?
If it's just coming from our plumbing, it would certainly be interesting that it's just coming up as from Taihape as opposed to the other towns. So it would suggest to me that there could be another source.
Just a comment there from Mr. Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's copper and zinc in all wastewater. The only thing that happens in Taihape is the limits on those are very tight, and that's why it pops up wastewater all over the country.
Thank you. Chief Executive?
If we're looking for an action, I just want to pause while we are.
Yes.
While we write that
Yes.
down. So can you,
Yep. Investigate trade waste water quality in Taihape.
and it was councillor.
Yeah, councillor Ash, sorry. Yep.
Is that all right?
Yep. Are you happy with that, councillor Ash? Thank you. Okay, further questions? Councillor Dalgety.
Just as that small typo, copper.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can I make-
moving through, and further comment if you wish.
Just a comment there, we're now including more information in this report, like the DRP, copper and zinc, etc. These aren't changes, it's just that we haven't previously put in the reasons for non-compliances. So you will get more detail now going forward. And yeah, I expect we'll have more actions to investigate sources of things as we go forward.
Oh, well, that's positive, thank you for that. Online, councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Just back to that question around the copper and zinc. So Mr. Bernardi mentioned that the limits around that are tighter in Taihape. I just wonder if you could clarify that.
Yeah, thank you. Through Mr. Chairman. Every consent's different. Every single one is different. The one in Taihape is particularly tight on chemical analysis in stream, up and downstream of the discharge, more so than any of the others, and that's why you'd see it there.
Councillor Carter. You were doing the pointing, thank you. But it is a bit hard to follow what's happening online over your shoulder. So, and apologies to online councillors if I miss you. Speak up if I do. Councillor Gordon.
So, through you, Chair, as part of this group consenting process where we're trying to treat all our plants with one provider, are we going to try and get the stringency the same across all?
Through Mr. Chairman, no. The consenting process is what determines the outcome of the consent and the conditions, and it depends on who submits, who goes to the hearing, what evidence they bring to the hearing, what interest they have. Every single consent is different.
If I might comment, I find it fascinating that the Hautapu has a mean summer low flow of between 0.6 and 1 cubic. So it does have some dilution. And if we look at Hunterville, we've got the Poriwa, which almost stops flowing. I would have thought that a stream with really low flow would have had highly stringent limits on it, and one with more dilution might have had less stringency. It seems a bit counterintuitive in a way.
So what happens at these hearings, we would have our experts, ecologists and all the rest, that would put a case forward to say that the stream and the ecology in the stream would be comfortable at these levels. Whoever would submit, whoever that might be, would have their own experts. They would have counter arguments for counter limits and the ecology of the streams, and it's then up to the hearing and to kind of determine where that balance lies between all the evidence that's been submitted. So it really depends on the whole process of the consenting, what has been submitted and where that level then falls finally.
Thank you. Councillor Felsham.
Just the overall picture, when you read that, this report, it does look alarming when you see a lot of red and yellow in there. Are we confident that this consenting program will identify the issues and moving forward to deal with this consenting? Because eventually it's going to arise in penalties if we sort of don't find some of these solutions. And are we confident in going through this process that our consultant is identifying the right type of solutions?
I am completely confident they're identifying the right solutions. I mean, the first part of this, why we went out to market for this kind of work, is to shine the spotlight on what's actually happening. Why are we non-compliant? Then we're in this phase on most of them of what can we do about it? What are the possible options? I think the challenge will be, and I've tried to flag it at the full council meetings, is, you know, what is the cost of fixing it and how will we fund that? But I am confident we've got the right team on board. We've been out on the open market and had some really quality responses. So it wasn't, we got a really good provider on board with all of the engineering capabilities that we require.
And just a follow-up question in regards with the Three Waters transition, and I mean, that will have an impact on this type of work. How are we merging that sort of stuff, work that's happening in the Three Waters space, to what we're trying to deliver in this space? Because from what I understand, the regulations are going to get tighter again. Are we spending money in the right place now, not knowing what's going to be there in the very near future?
It wouldn't be acceptable to the regional council to kind of hedge our bets and not address non-compliances in the next 2.5 years while we wait for Taumata Arawai to take over. So we've prioritised the work based on what's most non-compliant, right through to consents we can comply with, and we are just continuing to deliver them as if the changes
Business as usual.
Yeah, business as usual.
Jim, yes, may I just add also, I think for us as an organisation, we view environmental health as a very high priority. So for us, we would like to march along and get this work done as a priority, regardless of what's going to happen, rather than putting any of it on the back burner and waiting.
Your Worship.
I'm sure that Mr. Toombs is all over this, but I'm presuming that this is all regarded as a CapEx item rather than OpEx in terms of all this investigation. Because it makes a very significant difference. When the wash-up of Three Waters and the Three Waters entity, if it is OpEx, it's totally at our cost. If it's CapEx, it becomes part of the loan structure that we can then claim back. So I think that we have been able to put in this sort of consenting into CapEx because it's part of a capital build. Is that correct?
That's a good question.
There's a couple of, if I may, there's a couple of different angles to this. If it's unfunded OpEx, we would be recording it as waters-related debt. And we've been told that when the assets get transferred, our water-related debt will be reimbursed to us.
That's correct. That's what I'm angling at.
Yeah. But if it is CapEx, if the investigation leads to the construction of a capital asset, then the investigative costs can be capitalised.
Is there any? The question then flows on: is there any thing that you would require in terms of audit to detail that and clarify it for the future? In other words, would it be useful to have a paper that comes to council absolutely identifying that these are capital projects and the investigation into them is to be regarded as capital? I'm just thinking of the argument that's going to come in 3 years' time.
I think the question there was, would council find it useful? That's really not for me to answer that.
I'm just more about whether the chief executive and yourself would find it useful in terms of future argument about the transfer of assets to the entities.
Within the, if I may, within
Yes, Chief Executive, you got a comment on that? I've got a thought on that.
There are a couple of things that come to mind here. Firstly, there is, in a transition of the assets, there's no compensation proposed by government. So whether it's capitalised at X value or Y value, that value is yet to be determined. That's a process that will form part of the transition. So there's no compensation that's based on the capital value of the asset. That will happen in transition. There is a no worse off compensation payment that was part of the 2.5 billion that was announced at the LGZ conference, and how that intends to be distributed is also not yet identified, other than the 13 point something million that we were going to get as part of I'm trying to think of the terminology that was used. There's no worse off, and there's another, forgive me, I can't recall now. So all of the work on consents that we're currently doing, we would think we're currently doing, but how and if there is any compensation for it has not been confirmed.
Worship.
Through you, totally agree. There is no process and transfer of the capital value of these assets, because technically we will still be a part of an entity that owns them. However, there is a transfer of debt associated with, and that is the crux. So what I'm saying is that we need to make sure that these operational expenses are absolutely, wherever we can, be classified as a capital project, therefore loan funded, therefore associated to debt. So and whether there is I'm sort of trying to think 3 or 4 years out here, the more of this money that we can transfer to a debt position rather than an OPEX position.
So the question comes with that, if I may, Your Worship, is, and coming back to the original question, back to Mr. Toombs, is there some way that would need to come through council or by assets through to council as a recommendation with regards to the funding lines that are required for these investigations to be put into a particular pace or funded in a particular way that would give some clarity around that for later down the road as to where the debt may sit?
Correct. And this, sorry to sort of bog us down a little bit here, but in terms of our LTP, we have a fairly high debt repayment process. And that includes debt repayment according to heavy expenditure on 3 waters. So we would be better looking at an extended debt repayment process, because that debt will still sit on our books at the time of transfer.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to answer that question sitting here at this committee meeting, and I think that the gist of what you're suggesting is on board. So whether or not there's some investigation as to the best possible way with regards to consent funding can be investigated as to what was the best way that council can fund these consents, be it through CapEx or OPEX.
Yeah, I don't for a second think that we can get to a solution today.
No.
But the,
You're raising a greater issue for consideration with some of these things.
huge issue
Yes.
around our process of making sure things go into debt and having a debt schedule that's not going to be impacted heavily, payment heavily, and unfortunately some of that's already given, it's in the LTP.
Chief Executive, is there some way that we need to think about that, or how would you see that as being? Or can you come back to us with Mr. Terms at a later stage once you've had time to think about that, or what would be the best way to move this one?
Yeah, I thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think His Worship's comment on debt funding is relevant, and I think we, as a moving forward, a process could be that we have an undertaking to or an action to analyse the consenting works on Three Waters assets, and if that is debt funded. So it removes the CapEx OpEx, it's just simply as a debt funded. Yeah. And then we may bring this at your discretion, bring it back to this table, or to finance, or to full council, for you then to make a resolution that invites us to make sure we spread out our debt, et cetera, but it will impact the LTP, but it's still a position that, or you may ask us to address it in the annual plan, that kind of stuff. So kind of two-step.
Yes, I would agree with that, and I think it is something that we should be considering and having a little bit of focus on. So should we take that as being an undertaking, that may be something that comes forward, or does it need to be noted in here?
So what I've got there, what Ash's got there is His Worship requests the staff analyse consenting works through as access what degree is debt funded.
And over what period? This isn't a criticism of what we did in the LTP, but the reality around the impact of the Three Water entities.
Yeah. And we do need to be considering these things going forward. So I take that on board, Your Worship. Councillor,
sorry, before we leave that one, sorry.
Yeah.
Did you want us to bring it to this committee, or finance, or full council?
I think it's finance.
Yeah, I would say it's probably finance. Councillor Belsham, you're happy with that? Proceed that
because it is a
finance.
financial decision.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Duncan?
What would be referred to?
Just on that subject, I wonder if it would make it simple just to ask that wherever there is expenditure in this area, it's actually tagged as either CapEx or OpEx in the reporting.
Are you able to see the recommended, the action that's been listed? That I think it may answer your question.
No, I'm sorry, I can't see that screen at all.
Okay, so there's a request here. Do we need to read that out? Is that the best thing, or? His Worship the Mayor requested that staff analyse consenting works on Three Water assets and to what degree it is debt funded and over what period of time. Staff to respond to the Finance and Performance Committee. Does that clarify that? That's a that's an action to be taken. Does that answer that for you, Councillor Duncan, without you being able to see it online?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jess, we're solid waste now, I believe.
We are.
Especially for me, I like the reporting structure. Again, the paragraphs read very, very simple, and I think it's good, so thank you for that. I've noted here that it's obviously new reporting. And also noting that there was a number of questions raised on this when we did our follow-up actions list. So, Councillor Ash, you had one with regards to this item?
Yeah, I did. I was just wondering if there was any explanation behind the increase to the landfill and the decrease to the diversion for the 4 months to date of this financial year. The graphs are fantastic, wonderful. Thanks, Jess. But it does obviously raise a slightly alarming question as to what's happening with our waste.
It's a comment shared by a number of people in this committee. So, Jess or Anna, is there any comment that you can make? I note that it is an action in progress. Is there any further update?
Yeah, I think through you, Mr. Chairman, as an engineer that loves numbers, I just have to make the point, although the yellow does stand out, if you would put a trend line on top of those graphs over the years, you would see that there has been growth in the amount of tonnage that comes to us every month. And in this case, I would like to ignore August and September because of the lockdown in there. And it looks like the September month catches up on the August month. But if you look at July and October and you put a trend line on top of those, on top of the growth that exists, what you have is a slight increase on both of those. So what we have to consider is we've also had an increase in the number of residents in the district, then the amount of building activity in the district, and there's a whole lot of stuff happening over the last year in the economic development kind of area that would account for growth in the solid waste. So not to look at the yellow line as it's so much higher than the grey, but rather look at the trend line and look at what's happening over time.
Does that answer the question that Councillor Ash has asked about the diversion comparison though?
That is a good question. The diversion is down, and I'll definitely have discussions with Smart Environmental to try and understand why that is. Yeah, that's definitely something we can follow up on.
Your Worship.
Yeah, understanding the financials around the landfills are really, really difficult. You know, I think part of Councillor Ash's comment is when somebody from outside the district comes in and deposits into our transfer stations, is that a loading on the ratepayer? On one argument you could say yes, because the costs that we collect don't match the cost of delivering. So there is a ratepayer component of this, which is quite heavy, around about 130 odd K a year. In terms of the penalty around excess going to Bonnie Glen, I think that the limit was 10,000 tonne a year, and over 10,000 tonne, our charges go up substantially. However, we're not in that territory over the last few years. So it's really hard to know, you know, if somebody brings stuff to us and we charge them, is that an incremental benefit to the business of landfill? I'm not sure. Because a lot of our cost to the ratepayer is a fixed cost in maintaining these structures and so on. So there's part of me that thinks that somebody coming in and dumping, we receive actually a benefit from, because the cost of dumping it is greater than the marginal cost of treating it, if you like.
If I hear where you're coming from there, Councillor Ash.
Yeah, just can we get some clarity around where that cap is? I actually understood it to be 8,000 as opposed to 10,000. And if we're looking at the October 21 amounts, 532, we'd be getting close to that on an annual, you know, getting closer, especially if we're looking at this trend that we were talking about just before. So yeah, if we could please get some confirmation around what that cap is. I thought it was 8,000, but it could be 10,000. And
just one moment there. Do you have the answer to that question, Mr. Bernard?
Yes, it's 8,000 tonnes.
Thank you.
8,000 tonnes. You are correct, Councillor Ash.
Thank you. And the other thing as well is, will there be an action around investigating why there's been such a drop in the diversion comparisons as well? I've heard some interesting opinions, and so I'd just like to get some real facts around that, please.
Yeah. Yeah, we can take that as an action, as the conversation around the table here, Councillor Ash. If you're happy to have that, we listed as an action as to further investigation. Why is there such a drop in the conversion rate? Are you happy with that? Diversion rate.
Chair, I had a feeling that during COVID, a whole lot of the stuff that we had been collecting as recycled actually had to go to landfill. So there wasn't the processes to be able to handle a whole lot of the diversion stuff.
Yes, you are correct, and that was, we did have that information come to us either at a previous assets meeting or full council meeting, but it would be nice to get that clarified, I think, to see if that is why, and if that is in fact the answer why the diversion rate is changed, then we can accept that, but it would be nice to understand exactly what that is. If that was that, it would be good to get that clarified.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that it was.
Yeah, I recall it being received somewhere along the line as well. Councillor Gordon.
Thank you.
The other councillors online have finished, have they?
I believe so, yep.
I hadn't quite, but I was just going to say thank you. That is along the lines of what I had heard. However, that wouldn't explain then why there is any diversion at all. If it was all being taken to landfill, then we wouldn't have seen that diversion amounted all through those lockdown times, would we? Just a thought. Thank you.
The undertaking to do some investigation on that is the agreement here from staff. Councillor Ash. Thank you. Councillor Gordon.
This time. My question is around the diversion and the use of hard fill materials. And I just note that recycling of aggregates seems to have become the in thing with demolition. And we, in fact, were doing it at the landfill site down beside the river that we had to clean up. You know, central demolition seems to be gobbling up buildings and crushing old concrete and turning it back into aggregate at every second site you drive past. That's just locally, and it happens all over the country. And we have quite an amount of hard fill material arrives. I notice in Tie Heavy, but I'm sure we've got the same in Bulls and Marton. And I'm just wondering, do we treat that as a potential income stream? You know, do we have enough critical mass to make it worthwhile collecting these waste streams and stockpiling them somewhere to either give away or sell to someone who can recycle this material back? Because there's an awful lot of curb channel, broken footpath, bits of building reinforcing poking out, which these reprocessing people can all cope with, and yet it seems to just clutter up our hard fill sites, and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And yet there's a potential solution. So my question is really, do we have the, one, are we doing it? And two, what's the critical mass threshold at which we could have a different solution?
I mean, Ms. Benay is, and I'm not sure if that ability is in any of our transfer stations in the district. I don't think it is. Not for hard fill, not for bricks and concrete.
My reply, Mr. Chairman, is at a much higher kind of strategic level for the organisation. What we've done is we've employed consultants that specialise in solid waste management, and we've asked them to create for us, for the district, a roadmap of what it is that we're trying to achieve here with solid waste. I feel it is lacking. There's a big void in that space, and we're kind of just doing what we've always done. And the challenge to this consultants is to have a look at international trends, come back to us and tell us what is our best position going forward. And the reason why we're doing it now is because our solid waste contract expires in June next year, and we want to be ready to then either renew that as it stands or in whatever format we need to have it in. And I think that roadmap, and obviously that's something that will come back to council, that roadmap will finally give us some direction as to what is it that we want to do in the district with solid waste, and what does that look like, and how do we align all our future contracts to achieve those things.
Right. Yeah, that's pleasing to hear that that's a plan in place for consideration before the renewals. It's good to know that that's being thought out at this early stage. So thank you for that. Your Worship, you had a question or comment?
I sit on a regional rating thing where each authority within our greater region provides a report. And just recently, one of the rural councils, I'm not sure whether it was Tararua or Manawatu, had an article about this where they are crushing concrete, etc., and using it. But the interesting thing to me was that they are targeting that metal aggregate, whatever, for areas that are prone to dust. So where they've had complaints of people with dust in their houses, the material that they end up with has much lower dust problem. I thought it was, and I could bring it up, but I can happily forward that on, or your roading staff will have that report anyway.
Thank you for that comment.
It was clever.
Your Worship. Jess, does that bring us to the conclusion of this? Sorry, Councillor Belsham.
Just one other question around the solid waste, and it was in the follow-up actions around the concern around potential waste coming from outside of the district through our transfer stations. But do we pay a fixed rate for our transfer station operators so they don't receive increased revenue themselves? Do we retain the revenue when stuff gets dumped through our land? Does the district council retain that revenue? Does it go to the operator?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
It does. Okay, so there is an actual benefit to the district if any extra stuff comes through there.
Yeah, that's correct. The only negative would be that it carves into our cap, our limit. We did consider the question in quite a bit of detail, and it is a difficult one to figure out what waste comes from where, and how do we determine that it's accurate. I don't know how we would do that. How would we, I don't know.
The point is making it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The cap thing would be my issue, is if we start getting to that cap and above it, that would be a real concern. So, yeah. Okay.
Right, thank you, Councillor Belsham. You're happy with where we sit with that agenda item? Jess, happy to move from the chair the receipt of the infrastructure group report. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Panapa. All those in favour?
Aye.
Online, thank you. Moving to item 10.2, annual residence survey improvement plan. Welcome, George. I see you sneaking in the back door there.
Perfect timing.
Where's the timing?
No, you're right. Jump in somewhere. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take the report as read and I'm happy for any questions of it. There's a few other staff as well who will be able to answer some of those, possibly a little bit better than myself as well.
Yeah, certainly something that we've all taken a very keen interest as a council, as was reported through at our last month's council meeting. So, are there any questions or comments from the floor? Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, my question is, does the RFS feedback mechanism feed into this, or did it historically? Do we use that as part of our feedback tool?
You might have a better response in terms of the RFS stuff feeding into it.
Ms. Gordon.
The short answer is this report is all around the resident survey, so it's just on that information. It doesn't reflect the RFS data for this report.
So going forwards then, in our new system, is RFS going to be a feeder?
Yes, it's a major part of it.
Okay. If I might comment through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, I feel in the roading space that might be particularly useful. You know, we might go along wonderfully and then we have weather event or something happens and suddenly some road comes unstuck and we're going to get a lot of calls, so it will immediately spike. So it's not that we're necessarily doing the job badly, it might just be that there's a whole lot of feedback. So I'll leave it there.
I think one of the good things that has come out from this and from some of the feedback that we've had via staff to the various different committees and to council is the desire to improve our operations in such a way that we can act quickly with the information that we receive. That's what I take from it, because an annual resident survey really doesn't really give us an accurate picture of what's happening real time, and I think that's a key focus of where I can see the changes coming through that have been driven by Ms. Gordon and the team in that respect, because we do need to be able to bring that information together
with real-time information that we're receiving and our request for service, and bring those two together to enable us to identify something that we can not only fix as quickly as possible, but also acknowledge and respond to. And I think that's one of the key things, is to acknowledge and respond to a matter that's happening in real time or as soon as possible. And it's that response time, I think, is the key to us to be able to deliver better services across many of these reporting fields within this. And I think it's quite critical that we keep striving to drive that performance level better, so that we can act and react sooner, is my take on all these reports that we're seeing. And we're seeing it come across many different formats of council, not only here at Assets, but in full council. And I think that is the key. I don't think we're there yet, but I'm very pleased that there's a focus driving it. So thank you for that. Was there any comments, questions online regarding this item 10.2? Not seeing anything there. Any further comments from the committee around this? George, Councillor Belsham.
Just a question. So with our change of reporting in this new LTP period, are there mandatory measures that still have to be reported by sending out an annual resident survey, or are we doing away with that completely in the future?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, the only mandatory measures come through the three waters and the Roden from the DIA. So other than that, no.
Okay. So there's no requirement to send out an annual resident survey further?
And the trend seems to be with councils throughout the country is that they are shifting away from that. Again, how we've sort of established an understanding of it's not a snapshot in time that's 12 months later. So yeah, it's sort of a reason why a lot of councils are shifting away from it, to a youth like Mr. Beggs has sort of tried to implement with what we're doing with the user-based system.
No, fully agree, and we've been across this before. The only other question I had was, is Audit New Zealand happy with the questions we're asking, and that it will suffice to provide enough information as far as an audit goes?
So I think in terms of when we reviewed the statement of service performance, they didn't raise any questions in regards to not having annual resident survey questions in there. So when they reviewed that statement of service performance, they would have seen how those measures have been removed. As an example, how do you rate the libraries better than last year, worse than last year, about the same? So obviously all those ones were removed, and they didn't raise any concerns with that.
Good. So yeah, the final question, or the crux question, was Audit New Zealand under our new regime of reporting is happy with that scenario?
My understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Gordon would like to make a comment with regards to that.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. The message from audit was that a lot of councils are actually moving this way as well, because they see more value in not just having, like the chairman mentioned before, a snapshot in time. So we're certainly not alone with this approach. And if anything, the information that we're getting out of the RFP system going forward is going to be a lot better. They've worked with us on the mandatory measures around water to make sure that we're capturing exactly what they require us to capture. So they're very comfortable with how we're proposing this, and their concern is around mandatory measures rather than the other stuff that we as a council want to have. So they're very comfortable with that.
Thank you for that. We have a question online from Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Just my question would be, so we're going to real-time feedback, which I think is great, and we're already seeing some of that coming through. But are we then looking at, personally within staff, looking at the feedback over a year, for instance, as a review process, rather than as a going out to residents annually? We're still going to review that information. Is that going to be annually, or is it going to be quarterly or half yearly or whatever?
Yes, You will receive a 6-monthly report on the statement of service performance at the end of January. So you receive that twice. So the report will be up to the end of December.
Does that answer the question for you,
Yes.
Councillor Duncan? Thank you.
Yes, excellent, thank you.
Thank you. George, any further comment from you with regards to your report?
Nothing further from me, Mr. Chairman.
Gordon, you're happy with that? Okay, so do we have a move for the report we received? Councillor Gordon, second Councillor Carter. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. That concludes our meeting. I don't believe there are any other late items. Could councillors that are online just remain online for a few moments, please?